With over 3,000 downloads and slowly counting, it's What's Your Favorite Movie? Everyone's favorite movie podcast. Hey, how you doing? It's your old movie buddy, Ed South, and we're here for another exciting installment where we're going to talk about movies. Hey, you should follow the show on Twitter at WYF Movie Podcast, where we'll post lots of links to some of the stuff we talk about here on the show, all kinds of other movie goodness. And if you need more insanity in your Twitter feed, follow me, Ed South, at Ed South. That's the way it works. Well, folks, we don't have a big, shiny, name-brand guest lined up like we usually do. Do we usually? No. But we have our very good friend, Producer Brian, joining us live via the What's Your Favorite satellite, all the way from his home in California. Producer Brian, welcome back to What's Your Favorite Movie?
Darn glad to be here, Ed. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and just to reiterate, is your favorite movie still Star Wars?
Let me check. Yes, we're still there.
Excellent. So we got a couple things we want to talk about with you guys here on the show, and we hope you sit back and enjoy it. We're going to talk about a sequel, we're going to talk about a reboot, and we're going to talk about a spin-off. And I think first we'll just dive right into the spin-off, because that's the least exciting of the three in our book. But before we get into this spin-off film, let's dive into a burning question that has plagued the internet of lately. We're talking about Star Wars, and some people now want to call them AT-ATs, but we know they're called AT-ATs. Brian, you are the What's Your Favorite Movie Star Wars expert. What is your take on this, AT-AT or AT-AT?
It's been AT-AT for decades. I'm not sure where this new movement comes from, but I think with enough time and exposure and people actually hearing the phrase and not just seeing it in text, they'll realize that they're wrong, and they'll come around to the true pronunciation, which is and always has been AT-AT.
AT-AT, which they don't say it in any of the movies, correct?
They do not. They call them Imperial Walkers.
But the old toy commercials, which are 100% canon, right? I mean, those are...
Oh, yeah. That's been determined, yes.
Yes, they call them very clearly AT-ATs. So, I don't...
And so does J.J. Abrams.
And, well,
Good enough for me.
Exactly. So, and then I've heard on the internet people saying, quote, AT-AT or AT-AT, like it's some new politically correct version, or that you have to politically correct include everybody even if they're wrong. Like, that's where we are with society. Like, even if you're flat out wrong, I have to include your wrongness in my conversational piece.
Isn't wrongness just another form of rightness, Ed?
I guess. It's an alternative fact, indeed. Yes. So they're AT-ATs, people, and this show has no room for AT-AT. We will not be referring to them as AT-ATs ever.
That's right.
But
most of these things were never named in the movies. Wampas, Ewoks, we just know it. Mostly from toy commercials.
Exactly, and that's valid canon.
That's valid learning.
And also valid canon is to have a little thumb and finger around every character's waist, because that's what those toy commercials also did. So it's all good. And then also, just to be clear, the phone service is still AT&T. It's not AT&T or AT&T.
To my knowledge, yes, that is correct.
Okay. So, of course, the latest Star Wars film was Rogue One, a Star Wars story. And Producer Brian was on episode 18, which we titled Finally a Star Wars Episode, where we spoke a lot about Star Wars. And we had just, we recorded that a few weeks before Rogue One came out. And then it came out, and and our podcast came out and did okay numbers. And then both Rogue One came out, and then Carrie Fisher died. Both topics our podcast did not cover, but yet then the numbers went up with the podcast. So, what'd you think of Rogue One, Brian? I will tell you, I wanted to fall asleep in it, but give us your quick take.
But that happens in so many movies.
This is true.
It was a very interesting experience. When I was on the show last time, I think I sounded pretty interested, pretty excited to see it. Did not have a great experience the first time in the theater. And I will admit to being completely biased and unfair in my experience, but when I went to see it with some group of friends. I think it was the first showing, but I'd already purchased tickets for my family for the weekend. And I think I got D-Box tickets, and I think it was really, really expensive. But that's how excited I was. I was like, I already know I'm going to bring my daughter and my wife. We're all going to go. It's going to be great.
For those of you that don't pay attention, D-Box is the moving seats, that the seats move like a amusement park ride, and it's quite an upcharge.
It definitely is, but Star Wars.
Also, I imagine the scenario at your house was, okay, Star Wars comes out Friday, and your wife's like, well, we can't really go until Saturday, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going Friday, and then you guys can go Saturday.
Basically that, except I went Thursday.
Yes.
But as I'm watching the movie with my friends, I knew it was going to be different in tone. People were saying, it might be a little darker, it might not have the big Hollywood ending like these usually have, but I was thinking in my head like the later Harry Potter movies, like dark for family film standards. This movie was bleak. And as I was watching it, I had this sense kind of creeping up on me, and it didn't really hit me until towards the end, but I was watching it and I realized I can't bring my daughter to this. She had only just turned 10, and I was like, I think this would actually upset her. And I was like, but I've already got the tickets. So afterwards, walking out, it felt really, really strange to think, like, I'm going to have to return these tickets, because I just assumed that it was a Star Wars movie, and the whole family was going to go.
Right.
And just sort of grappling with that idea of, like, I guess that Star Wars movie just wasn't for me, but like that whole concept was so alien that I didn't even know what to do with it.
And it wasn't the parental content that you were worried about with your daughter. Like it wasn't like there was cursing or Jabba the Hutt took his pants off or something like that.
It was just tone. It was just thematically.
Right.
Very grim. So I knew, I was like, okay, I'm reacting because I dumped a ton of money on these tickets, and I was really excited to see it with my daughter, and now I feel like I can't. So I'm going to give it a little bit of time and go see again and actually like see the movie and try and judge the movie on its own merits, and it'll probably tick up a little bit my score. And it did. It's not a bad film at all. It is a little bleak. It doesn't necessarily have it has amazing characters, but they don't really have any amazing character development. There's no real arc for any of them. They're just kind of neat character ideas with really good actors who do a thing, and then the thing is done. And afterwards, what I kind of found is that Star Wars fans are generally split into two camps.
AT-ATs and AT-AT.
Yeah, the AT-AT camp, the AT-AT camp. One camp, most of the people I know, like around my age and that went and saw the movie, are like, that was cool. That was a good movie. I'll give it like a 7 out of 10. That was fine. And then for a smaller set of people, this is the Star Wars movie they've been waiting for their entire life.
Boo.
Loved it. Loved it. They're like immediately number one on the list, best Star Wars. Why is there even a debate? So I'm not sure exactly what they were looking for, but I'm glad they got it. Ultimately, I'm glad that it tried to not just do the same thing and, experiment and try to find its own voice and try to have its own visual style and, its own style of soundtrack and things that were different.
Right.
So I don't want to punish them for that. That was the right direction. Just wasn't as much for me. And ultimately, I think that's okay. I think episode 8 is going to be right up my alley, and I'm going to love it.
Brian, I don't know if we can take mature, level-headed opinions like that and put that on the internet. Is that allowed?
This is going on the internet, isn't it? Wait. Let me rephrase.
This was the worst Star Wars movie ever. No. For me, it started, I knew going in like it was going to be different, and I was looking forward to what differences there were going to be, because there's so many elements that play a part of the other 7 movies. So, to see what they were going to break away with tradition from. And it started off that first scene on the farm with the showdown with the bad guys. Like I was like, okay, this is like really tense. This is like kicking it up a notch. I'm on board. And then
Yeah, me too.
And then the next 45 minutes of the movie was just people whispering planet names and weird character names. So I just got so out. I mean, it just felt like it was all and then we're going to go see to Japan to see Lisa Zuzuda. I was just like, what? So then by the time it picked up, I was just out of. I was like, I don't care. And that robot, if you're gonna have a robot, what was his name? KSR1 or something.
It was either that or it was K2SO.
Something like that. Come on, why put C3PO in there, right? I mean, come on.
Well, not a lot of people realize he was actually reprising his role from iRobot, so that was an interesting choice.
That is a reference for everyone who has seen the iRobot film.
We all remember the Will Smith classic iRobot. I feel like I can pretty comfortably reference iRobot, and everybody will understand exactly where I'm coming from.
There is a billboard on the outside of town here that I pass at least once a week, which apparently has an iRobot poster as the base of it. So whenever the current one is taken down, it just is re-advertising iRobot for 3 weeks. Until I'm dead serious.
That's amazing.
It's weird, yes.
Well, the reason I always assume that iRobot is more a part of the pop culture consciousness than it really is way back when I was testing software, when I was in QA. We had a demo disc that had some game demos and some movie trailers and stuff like that. And it was the first pass of the disc, and it didn't have most of the content on it. So all it had was one game demo and the trailer for iRobot. And we had to test that for a week solid. So I saw the trailer for iRobot at least 900 times.
Oh, you're a lucky son of a gun there.
I know. Jealous, everybody. But now, I'll drop lines from iRobot and realize, oh, that movie came out 100 years ago and nobody remembers it.
And let's do a quick Will Smith Disney crossover for a second. Will Smith as the genie in Aladdin? What? No. What? That just... I don't know. That doesn't work for me. That's what I hear.
He turned in the best Arsenio Hall impression in his audition? I'm not sure.
I don't know. That's what's going around right now. But you got to think everyone said Michael Keaton, Batman? What? So
that's true. Robert Downey, Iron Man? Come on, guys. Get serious.
If you think about it, the Fresh Prince song "Girls Ain't Nothing But Trouble" does sample the theme to "I Dream of Jeannie." So maybe,
wow.
Who knows?
Sure. And I was feeling guilty over my iRobot references. Go ahead and make that connection.
Well, I tell you what, you might be proud of your iRobot reference, but I'll tell you who's really proud. DexShirts.com, who sponsors this extremely entertaining and informative podcast. DexShirts.com, folks, has some awesome movie t-shirts for you. Back to the Future, Predator, Die Hard. What else they got, producer Brian? You brokered the deal.
I did. Well, I rock my flux capacitor every chance I get.
They just came out with a new shirt just this week as we're recording. They came out with a new shirt themed to a certain movie about intergalactic wars in stars. And they have a t-shirt featuring a certain bounty hunter who is blowing bubbles. And the shirt says...
Is it Zuckus? Wait, it's Forlom, isn't it?
What?
No?
Are you talking about iRobot?
I'm just naming some bounty hunters.
It's Bubble Fett. Bubble Fett. And yes, so they have a new Bubble Fett shirt. So be the first on your block to get the Bubble Fett shirt. And I did not do the research, but I'm pretty sure the font they use is a reference to some old bubble gum, either Hubba Bubba or Bubblicious or something like that. I will figure it out.
Ooh.
But that's
now I really want to look. Could be Bubble Yum.
So go to DexShirts.com, and hey, while you're picking up Bubble Fett shirts for you and the whole neighborhood, use our promo code WYFMovie and save 20% off your entire order. That's Bubblicious. Unique and exclusive new t-shirts inspired by nostalgia, pop culture, and iconic movie themes. It's DexShirts.com. And thank them for being so kind to our listeners. Let's talk about another series of films that has as many as Star Wars does, but in a mere fraction of the time. And I've said this before on the show. How in the world are we on installment 8 of the Fast and the Furious franchise? How did that happen? This is our sequel that we're talking about. You saw the new Fate of the Furious?
I did. I don't know how we got to 5, but I certainly took part in helping it get to 8 from there.
And 9 and 10 are, I think, a done deal with a spin-off for both Vin Diesel's character and The Rock's character. So, and probably one of the cars is getting his own spin-off. So, if this was a franchise in the 80s, there definitely would have been a Saturday morning cartoon like The Fast and the Funniest or The Fast and the Furriest or something like that.
I wrote down a note for that. How is there not a cartoon for this?
There will be.
There absolutely would have been. And they would have had like a koala or some kind of pet that they tacked onto the team.
It would have been a dog named Vin Beagle.
Probably that.
So
it would have to be a dog because it's a car cartoon.
Give us your quick your impression of the Fate of the Furious.
It is. This series is one of the strangest things that exists in cinema. It has fallen into this rhythm where it knows exactly what it wants to be. The audience knows exactly what they want to get out of it. And it delivers so consistently every couple of years. I don't know how it got here, but for the longest time, I was like probably a lot of listeners who were like, oh, those car movies.
Right.
I guess I would watch that if I was a car guy, but I'm not really. So I sort of, dismissed them for, halfway through the franchise. And then it was somebody at work who was like, you're not watching the Fast and the Furious movies? Like, let me take you on a journey. Let me tell you about these films. I was like, I think I'm good.
I'm good.
But the more they started to explain it, the more I began to realize there's like an entire mythology to the series that is ridiculous. So something that you and I like to talk about a lot is the sort of the arc of a series. You've seen a pattern with so many franchises where there's like 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 in the theater, and then like the cast starts to kind of fall off.
Right. And
then they start to go direct to video. And then one day you're in a store and you're like, there's a 7th one of these?
Exactly.
Where did this come from? That is exactly
are you
speaking
speaking of Police Academy in particular?
Definitely. I mean, Police Academy, which did get a cartoon and a live-action series.
Right.
But so what happens is, I'll keep the history as quick as possible. 2001, The Fast and the Furious comes out, and it basically is a car movie.
Right.
There's some car chases, and there's a relationship between Vin Diesel and Paul Walker's character. That's sort of that friendship's like the center of the film.
And where are we? Where are we in the general arc of the Vin Diesel phenomenon? Like, was he was this was a Vin Diesel movie. This didn't make Vin Diesel. He was already kind of.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, what I heard was that he had around the same time he had Pitch Black,
right?
Pitch Dark, Pitch Black, The Fast and the Furious, and Triple X. So all of a sudden, he had kind of 3 franchises all kicked off, and I guess the feeling at the time was, well, you can't do that. You can't have all these franchises. This is before The Rock was a huge star, and you could have as many franchises as you wanted. But he had to pick, or he chose to pick, and he stuck with the Riddick character and made a video game and a couple of those movies. So the sequel, Too Fast, Too Furious, with number 2s,
right,
comes along a couple years later.
2003.
No Vin Diesel.
No Vin Diesel.
So they're like, okay, well, we still have Paul Walker. He's the star now, and we're going to bring in like Ludacris, and Tyrese, and they're going to be part of the new crew. And it was all right. And then they made a third one, and the third one should have been direct to video. It was a new new writer and a new director, and Chris Morgan was the writer and Justin Lin was the director. They didn't get anybody back from the previous movies.
Oh, okay.
And it was like a high school movie.
Like they
so
were.
It has nothing to do with anything. There's cars in it. That's why it's called The Fast and the Furious. It's called The Fast and the Furious: Tokyo Drift. And
it's called The Fast and the Furious not because it has cars in it, because they wanted money.
Yes, that's the primary reason. And then they decided cars was a good way to get the money.
Well, the first, I was going to say the first one grossed $144.5 million. The second one did $127 million, and then the third one only did $62 million. So yes. by all accounts, that should have been the end of the theatrical life of the Fast and the Furious. That's where you start to see them in Walmarts, but not the Fast and the Furious.
No, and that's where it gets insane because so many franchises have followed that pattern, and for reasons I wish I knew, I wish I could have been there when the decision was made, Justin Lin and Chris Morgan get another shot at the franchise in the theater, and somehow they get Paul Walker and Vin Diesel and the cast from the first one all back together and essentially reboot the whole thing. There's still a timeline. It still takes place after the others, sort of. But
Vin Diesel's career...
It reinvented it basically as an action franchise.
Vin Diesel's career was in a slump at that point, so he was more than happy to jump back on the FF train. The FF train. And what Paul Walker... I mean, I know we have to speak with him with some reverence now because he passed away, but he didn't have much going on outside of the Fast and the Furious world, did he? I mean, I know he made some other movies. I mean, we all love his late 90s film, Meet the Deedles. I know I do.
Which you saw in the theater?
Which I saw in the theater, yes, where his father, John Astin, is a park ranger at Yosemite, I think, and they have to save all the prairie dogs, and they teach the prairie dogs how to surf. Go ahead, continue.
If I had known that was the plot of the movie, I would have seen that in the theater. That sounds amazing.
It's a fine film. But anyway...
Yeah, four brought it back. And that team, Justin Lin and Chris Morgan, stuck around for 5 and 6 and 7. And the 8th one was written by Chris Morgan, but Justin is off doing Star Trek things now, apparently. So,
well, the one thing that I read once that piqued my interest in the Fast and the Furious franchise was the interview with director Justin Lin, who I've seen this in several places, where he, and I'm not making this up, said that the Golden Girls was his inspiration for tying all the movies together and making this shared universe. So, of course, I wanted to dive into that and figure out what... I remember reading it, but I didn't remember exactly what, so I wanted to get the backstory. And so he's got these 3 or 4 movies that didn't really necessarily connect, but then he later made them all connect, correct? Like they are connected later, like you find out, even though it felt like 3 was all by itself. It is. Yes.
That's like the ta-da at the end of the magic trick. Is it turns out that 3, the Tokyo Drift kind of throwaway movie, turns out to be the linchpin of the entire thing.
Linchpin, nice.
Oh yeah.
So what he's referring...
I looked it up to make sure I was using that term correctly, and I think I am.
What? And also Vin Diesel stars in Linchpin, coming soon to theaters everywhere. Justin Lin. So the Golden Girls thing is that he remembers when he was younger watching TV. One night they did a thing on NBC called like Hurricane Saturday, where a hurricane hit both Golden Girls and then the 2 shows that were on after it, Empty Nest and Nurses. So it was one big hurricane hit it all. But so I was reading this interview. I brought up the interview and I'm reading it, and it seems to me that Justin Lin did not realize, or still does not realize, that because he says, oh, they were like all in the same universe. Well, Empty Nest and Nurses were spin-offs of Golden Girls, so yes, they were part of the same universe. I don't think he gets that. I need to talk to Justin. Yeah.
I knew that about Empty Nest. I did not realize Nurses was also...
Empty Nest is the neighbors across the street from the Golden Girls, and then Nurses takes place in the same hospital where the neighbor worked. So it's like a chain, right? So I just thought that was kind of funny because now
that's clear in the series because there's, I won't spoil things because my goal is to convince people to get into this franchise and give it a shot. But there's a certain event in the third movie that's not just kind of the sort of a call to action in the third movie, but is also really important through the rest of the franchise because as you watch the fourth and fifth and sixth movie, you realize that they have to take place before that event in 3. So there's a whole timeline thing going on as well. And they actually close that loop near the end of 6 and carry it forward into the 7th movie.
Oh, my head's hurt.
And the whole time through the franchise, characters, like if you've ever been in any of the movies for any amount of time, you could get a call any second about the 9th movie. There was a guy in 7 that had one line in the first movie, and they called him back up 15 years later. Hey, ready to play Hector again? You get to say hi to Vin Diesel a second time. And he was like, sign me up.
So Hector had to leave the car show that weekend and go touch down in a major motion picture. One of the things I love, just from an outsider standpoint, of the Fast and the Furious franchise is that the titles have no symmetry. Is that what I'm looking for? Like they're not. It's not like they're just all over the place.
It is sloppy.
It's the Fast and the Furious, and then Too Fast, Too Furious with the two. Too Fast, Too Furious. The Fast and the Furious : Tokyo Drift. Then they just go Fast and Furious, which I remember when that coming out.
They just took out the thes.
I remember being completely flabbergasted. You can't just take out thes and have a new title. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I'd be like calling
they use every sequel naming gimmick, but they never use the same one twice.
That's very true, and they make up some. That would be like coming out with like Star Wars Episode 8 being called Empire Strikes Back. Tokyo Drift, Fast and the Furious. Then we get to Fast 5. Which is also my favorite Pizza Hut promotion. And then they just lazy out at Fast and Furious 6. They couldn't come up with anything for that. And then we go Furious 7, and then The Fate of the Furious, which I heard is because fate rhymes with 8. So
must be. I'm
assuming we're going to have the Fine and the Furious or something like that next, and then they live on a farm and it's the Hen and the Furious. I don't know, but.
It's not impossible. And
then the grosses of the films, like we said, number 3 was $62 million, and that's where it should have derailed to DVD. But instead, do I have 4? Okay, so number 4, so $62 million, and then the fourth one made $155 million, and then 5 went to $209 million, 6 went to $238 million, and 7 grossed $353 million, and these are domestic alone. So it still. And
I remember that 7 made headlines because it was at the time when it came out. It was the fastest film and most furious to $1 billion worldwide.
Yes, and then
fastest to $1 billion.
And then the new one, as of last night when I wrote these notes, was at $196.5 million, and it's only been out for a few weeks. So.
And they're absolutely doing 9. They're not shy about that fact at all in the movie. It practically ends with Vin Diesel turning to the camera and saying, "See y'all next time.
I'll be back for 9." When are we going to get a pacifier too? Come on, Vin Diesel. So many
all the franchises. Now, one fascinating thing I learned, one exciting tidbit for me, something I gained from doing the modicum of research I did in preparation for the podcast.
Would you say it's fascinating? Never mind. Go ahead.
I would be furious if I said that with myself. I discovered in looking up the timeline that there are 2 Fast and Furious short films that I have never seen that I now cannot see fast enough. So I'll have to find them somewhere.
So you're furious that you can't see them fast enough.
I think that's how
they must have just drifted right by you. I don't understand. But so they're probably like the Marvel shorts that are on DVDs, like they just
very much like that. That's what it sounds like. So there's one called Los Bandoleros in 2009, and then before that there was one in 2003 that has the most overwrought film name ever. The official title of the short film is The Turbocharged Prelude for Too Fast, Too Furious. Because that's what you name a movie.
That's what you name a film. Awesome. I also noted the first film had a budget of $38 million, which is chump change in Hollywood. And the most recent movie had a budget of $250 million, which is obscene.
Oh my gosh.
Which is obscene. Is there a lot of car chases and lots of explosions in the Fast and the Furious franchise? I think I saw like the first 10 minutes of the first one and fell asleep. And that was it.
I think there was a car chase in the new one.
Awesome.
I'm pretty sure. I have to see it again, but I think so.
Are you being sarcastic with me?
I'm being sarcastic.
Okay, I got you.
Half of every movie takes place in cars.
I did see the parody by the guys that did...
No.
Yeah, it was horrible. What was it called?
Super Fast?
Yes.
Is that what it's called?
So, like... When you go into one of those movies, it's the guys that did Date Movie and Epic Movie and and then they did
which is why I don't go into those movies.
But I go to I'm a sucker for those, even though they have gone downhill. And then like the last one they did before Supercharged was the Starving Games, which was good for them. Oh yeah, like even setting
I admire your dedication.
Even setting the bar that low, Super Fast was horrific. That's all I'm going to say. Sorry, guys, whatever their names are.
Sorry, those guys. The only thing I know about that is I remember you telling me that all the character names were just the first names of the real life actors.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it was like Vin and Paul.
Vin.
Right.
Yeah, Vin and Paul. Well done, guys.
But I mean, really, a pacifier 2 would probably be pretty good.
I'd be on board. And you know why? Because it's been too long since we've had the trailer where you have the intense music and some military operations about to go underway and someone's loading a gun. And from the very first frame, you know it's going to break comedy.
Yes.
And have like a record scratch. And it's going to be like, at this preschool. Yeah. It's been too long. I need a new one of those.
Now, we did get, after... When you talk about action stars making kids films, the template is Kindergarten Cop, which isn't necessarily a kids film, but a great film. And then 16 years late, 20 some years later, we get Kindergarten Cop 2, not with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but with Dolph Lundgren, ladies and gentlemen. Dolph Lundgren. And that's where we're talking about films derailing to the video market. Would you say, I know another franchise near and dear to your heart, which would rank higher on the Producer Brian franchise scale of love? The Fast and the Furious or, I can't remember its name, Tremors? I know you love you some Tremors.
I do love me some Tremors, but there is an event. Like when I saw The Fate of the Furious... there's a friend of mine named Scott that, like, before the movie was even announced, we already knew that we had to see that together because he's completely into the mythology of the franchise, ridiculous as it is with me. And then I heard at work that some other people were like, oh, yeah, like, I have a person I always go see the new Fast and Furious with. So I think it might just edge it out. However... Mr. Gross, Michael Gross, if you're listening, you know that I will be there. I will hop on the train and be there day one for any Tremors experience you care to produce. So.
When you said hop on the train, were you making a reference to Michael Gross being celebrity spokesperson for the Baltimore Train Museum?
I was trying to bring my reference game back and out-obscured you.
You're...
Even more.
No.
Michael Gross loves him some trains, guys. If that's your only takeaway from this podcast, let it be that.
Actually, I was also thinking, you mentioned your friend Scott, so maybe he'll listen, and that'll be one listen for this episode. Woohoo!
I'll talk to him. No promises, though.
No promises. Well, let's move from our... So that was our sequel... And now we're going to talk about a reboot of sorts, another extremely manly franchise of films. And it's kind of cool, actually, that we're talking about it in a film sense, because up until a few years ago, they weren't really relevant. But we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, the Smurfs. Thank you very much.
We certainly are.
The creation of Belgian artist Peyo, and of course there's a new film out called Smurfs: The Lost Village. Now, I am a Smurf fan, I guess, although I have to say, as much as I loved that show when I was a kid, and as much as I love cartoons now and do watch a lot of cartoons, old stuff, the Smurfs cartoon is the TV show is fairly unwatchable. Like, I showed it to my daughter after we saw the new movie, and it's bad. It's not good. But I probably spent a good, cumulative 9 months of my childhood, watching that show every Saturday morning. But the new movie, Smurfs: The Lost Village, came out, and you saw it, right?
I did.
You took your daughter? Indeed. You took your daughter?
Yes, that one I was able to to bring my daughter.
It was not bleak.
It was not bleak.
And did she enjoy it?
She loved it, yeah.
My daughter loved it, and she's 4. Your daughter is 10, correct? You said
she
that
is
earlier?
10, that's right.
So the thing with the Smurfs is, which I was really happy that they did this movie, it's fully animated. It's not an animation live-action hybrid, which they just had done 2 other times in 2011 and 13 with Smurfs and the creatively titled The Smurfs 2. But
too Smurfy.
Too Smurfious. In those films, the Smurfs get sucked out of their little mushroom town and end up in real-life New York City, where they hang out with Doogie Howser and the girl from Glee. And they weren't horrible, but the Smurfs deserve so much better, in my opinion, as a diehard Smurf fan from my youth. So I was really happy that they went ahead and said, we're going to scrap the stupid live action thing. We're going to make the Smurfs look like Peyo's original artwork. They look a lot more like the comic book, whereas the what's his name? Neil Patrick Harris. The Neil Patrick Harris movies, the Smurfs look like realistic, like they have. You can see, like, their skin is, like, all, it's not very cartoony. It looks, like they did with Alvin and the Chipmunks, yes. We haven't gotten to when they're going to do that to Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, but that's coming soon, and that'll be a whole nother episode, depending on how good that is. But the Smurfs movie in 2011 was not the first time the Smurfs were in the theater. In fact, this new Smurf movie is the 5th Smurf film, and I didn't even know that there was a 1965 Smurf movie titled Les Adventures des Schtroumpfs, which is doesn't even have an English title because it was only out in Belgium and France. 1965. It was consisted of 5 short stories, which I think most of them were later actually made into Hanna-Barbera Saturday morning episodes, but we didn't have Smurfs in 1965 in America. We were Smurfless. You remember a time when we were Smurfless, Brian?
It was sad days.
That was bleak. You want to talk about bleak? That was bleak.
Yeah, you want to see bleak. I could barely bring myself to Smurf every morning.
But the Smurfs were kind of lingering around, now Hello Kitty's a kind of a big thing, but Hello Kitty was around and there was no TV show. There was nothing really except just you saw like Smurf figures in the store, and I think there was like a comic book. So by the time the TV show came around, it was like awesome for people that were into Smurfs. Like, oh, now this is finally going to be something. And the Smurf TV show came on 81, 82, I think. I think it was 81. So by 83, they came out with a full-length animated film called The Smurfs and the Magic Flute. Are you familiar with The Smurfs and the Magic Flute? Well, I know you're familiar with it because you hear me talk about it all the time. But
yes. But I have, in fact, spent some time with both Johan and Pee-wee.
Yes, excellent. Okay, so
it's been a while, but yeah, I watched.
So this movie came out in 83, and of course everyone was like, oh, cool, a Smurf movie or whatever. little did we realize, without the internet and other such things to inform us, that this was actually a 1976 film that was made in Belgium also, and it is nothing to do with the TV show. So a lot of people went and saw it and were like, what? What is this? The Smurfs don't even appear until 35 minutes into the movie, which the movie itself is only like 72 minutes. And they don't have the same voices. It's not animated the same. So it's totally different. So I'm sure so many people, I didn't get to see it in the theater, but I'm sure so many people like went and saw it and were like, what in the Smurf is this? Like, what is this? And I remember renting it on tape like a year later after when it came out on tape, and was like, what? But they would air it on TV every year at Thanksgiving. Like the day after Thanksgiving used to be a huge day for TV because the kids were off of school, so there was always cartoons and stuff like that. So I would just watch it every year, and it's kind of become a Thanksgiving thing for me. Like, that's a Thanksgiving movie for me. I have to watch it. I don't watch it every Thanksgiving, but I still put it on every once in a while.
I'm positive that's why I'm familiar with the movie, was from the holiday TV.
Right. It would be like on Channel 54 in Baltimore. And when it was on TV, they would edit it, and they took out a scene from later in the film and bumped it to the front of the movie so the Smurfs were in the movie earlier. And it was just a narrator would pop up who's not in the rest of the movie, and it would just be like, meanwhile, the Smurfs were having a party. And they would just move one of the songs from like an hour into the film up into like the first 10 minutes and then go back to the story leading up to the Smurfs. So those are things that are stuck in my brain. Those are things that...
I learned things today.
But the new Smurf movie, The Lost Village, is really cool. It's well animated. It was funny. The ending was a little anticlimactic, a little do I want to say dopey? It was just kind of the ending was weak, but the 90 minutes leading up to it were enjoyable, I thought, and they did a good job of drawing the Smurfs the right way and handling them the right way. I would like to see them do a movie where they stay in the Smurf village for the entire duration of the film. We don't need to go to New York. We don't need to go to Paris like we went in the second film. And we don't need to go to the Lost Village. Let's stay in Smurf Village. And that's the gauntlet I'm throwing down to the Smurf people.
I would love that. I think that, the ending was a little soft. I think that's fair to say. But it was well put together. Otherwise, it was funny. I laughed out loud
it was
several
good,
times, and I thought that it had a lot of heart to it. And I was like, oh, this feels like this was made by somebody that liked these characters and wanted to do something interesting and genuine with them, and heartfelt and funny. And it was. It felt great. And that's probably why it was demolished by The Baby Wears a Suit, the motion picture.
Boss Baby. I know Boss Baby's in the 150 million range, and Smurfs, The Lost Village, has only brought in 38.5 million so far.
Oh,
in the U.S.
Poor Smurfs.
Worldwide, it's done 156. So
there you go.
Maybe we'll get a sequel. Maybe at least a DVD sequel. The other two Smurf movies with Doogie Howser made 564 million worldwide. That's as bizarre as Fast and the Furious making all that money. Like a horrible Smurf movie making 564 million. The second one made 347 million, and now this one's petering out at like 150. So, Godspeed, Smurfs.
That's where you get somebody saying, I want to do this one right. And that's also why you have some producer that says, well, that's great, but I want to shoot in New York and have Neil Patrick Harris and make 5 times as much money.
Right.
So,
but like you were saying, it felt like they were trying to do a good job. I got the same sense of like care for the characters as the Peanuts movie that was out in 2015.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
And Smurfs were not as tied down to as many restrictions or as I felt with
expectations.
With the Peanuts movie, it had to be very specific, done a certain way, and they nailed it like on every front. The Smurfs had a lot of leeway. You could put some more adult jokes in there; it's okay. And as you may recall, Brian, in 2015, I vowed to burn down the theater if Snoopy farted in the movie. And he did not, and God bless everyone involved for that.
Yes, thank goodness. And that's probably why I have not heard about a sequel for that film either.
That is true.
But the Peanuts was brilliant. That was really well done.
Smurfs The Lost Village, folks. Go see it. Go see some Fast and the Furious. I forgot real quick before we wrap it up. We are going to play the dumbest game ever created for this show. Are you ready, Producer Ryan?
I'm so excited.
Now, another one of your favorite franchises is Indiana Jones. And I just watched Last Crusade the other night, which was the first time I'd ever seen it. I've now seen all four, finally, at age 44. I've seen all four.
And it took how many years?
What depends on where you're going to count from, but I've seen them. I saw Crystal Skull first because of my son, and then I have watched the others over the last 10 years.
And
I guess.
you saw Crystal Skull in its original feeder run.
Yes, correct.
Okay,
then,
so yeah, you're right about the 10 years.
Yes, so there you go.
Almost. Yep.
So I know you enjoy the Indiana Jones, but you weren't a fan of the television show, The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
Not as much.
And he had many adventures on the small screen. So what I have here, Brian, is a list of titles, and this game is called Why'd It Have to Be Ducks? Why'd It Have to Be Ducks? And you have to tell us if I'm telling you an episode of The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles or an episode of DuckTales. Are you ready?
This is amazing. Okay, I'm ready.
Unfortunately, we can't have a buzzer because we're using the phone for the phone, but we will buzz anyway. Okay, number 1, Mystery of the Blues, Indiana Jones or DuckTales?
Ooh, I'm going to hope that was the Indiana Jones that featured Harrison Ford.
Indiana Jones Season 2, Episode 5. No idea what it was about. Treasure of the Golden Suns. Indiana Jones or a bunch of ducks?
I'm going to go DuckTales on that one.
DuckTales Season 1, Episode 1, Treasure of the Golden Suns.
Maybe so. All right.
Pearl of Wisdom. Pearl of Wisdom. Was that found by an archaeologist or by a duck with no pants?
It really could be either. But, it sounds a lot like one of the Indiana Jones books I have. So I'm going to go ahead and say it was Young Indy.
It was Season 1, Episode 37 of DuckTales.
DuckTales. As soon as you said Episode 37, right. I knew that we were no longer in Young Indy territory.
Curse of the Jackal. Curse of the Jackal.
Curse of the Jackal, Young Indy.
That is correct. Season 1, Episode 1. Curse of the Jackal. Attack of the Hawkmen. Attack of the Hawkmen.
I do hope that was DuckTales.
That was a 1995 TV movie of the Young Indiana Jones. Didn't know there was Family Channel TV movies. Attack of the Hawkmen was Indiana Jones. How about The Phantom Train of Doom? The Phantom Train of Doom.
I'm still thinking about how much of a better fit Hawkmen were for the DuckTales world, but that's okay.
True.
Phantom Train, let's give that to the Ducks. I think Uncle Scrooge was on the Phantom Train to nowhere.
Indiana Jones, Season 2, Episode 11.
My goal is now to guess every remaining one wrong.
Last one. Indiana Jones or DuckTales. Episode title, The Duck Who Knew Too Much.
All right, hang on. I feel like I've seen this one. That better be DuckTales, or else I will never play DuckTales 2 for the NES again.
Season 3, Episode 3. 4 out of 7. Not bad. Not bad for someone who knows his indie, but not his DuckTales as much. So there you go. Brian, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy Fast and the Furious watching schedule to talk about Smurfs with me.
I am busy. I have a lot of DuckTales to catch up on.
Yes, you do.
Yes, you do. But for you, I will always make the time.
That's why you and you alone are bestowed the title Producer Brian. Guys, thank you so much for your time for listening to What's Your Favorite Movie. Hey, do us a favor and help us out. Share the show on social media or tell your friends about it. Say, hey, listen to this podcast. It is good. You can also subscribe or give us a rating or review in iTunes. That helps us out a lot. And please, for the love of all the ducks in Duckburg, email us at favemoviepodcast@yahoo.com. You can give us some film recommendations, some show topics, now that we're kind of doing topics on the show, or just tell us your favorite Smurf. That's fine too. You could do that. Or tell us if you prefer Fast or Furious. Either way. favemoviepodcast@yahoo.com is the email address. Brian, thank you once again.
Anytime, buddy. Thank you.
All right, guys, we'll see you real soon. Until then, it's khaki wishes and cookie dreams.